Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the Africa Brief on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories of this hour. Tunisian President Kais Saied has summoned a EU Ambassador Giuseppe Perrot to deliver a sharp protest after the envoy met union leader Noureddin Taboubi. Amid growing tensions with civil society, the summons comes as current government intensifies a crackdown on rights groups which Amnesty International has warned against. Nigeria's kidnapping of 300-plus pupils in Papiri has exposed President Bola Tinubu's deepening security failures. The attack after soldiers allegedly withdrew from the area underscores the military struggle and the government's inability to prevent such mass abductions. An Ethiopian volcano in the Afar region erupted for the first time in 12,000 years, spewing ash across continents and forcing airlines in India and the UAE to cancel flights. Local officials reported no casualties but warned of serious risks to communities and livestock as ash continues to spread. Over Russia-Ukraine peace deal grows. Ukraine hints at hope, says common understanding has reached with the United States on peace deal aimed at ending the war with Russia. US President Donald Trump has said that the proposal for Ukraine peace deal has been fine-tuned with collaborations of both Russia and Ukraine, as US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will be meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin next week. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated that President Trump has hinted that he may hold up to 4 in-person meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping next year, marking an unprecedented level of high-level US-China contact. This comes as China agrees to buy at least 87.5 million metric tons of US grain over 3.5 years. The death toll from the Thailand floods have now risen to 18 people, and over hundreds of patients are reportedly stuck in the hospital as the conditions worsen in the region, as the armed forces continue to the rescue operations in parts of Thailand. Now we start this hour with Sudan. The United States has presented Sudan's warring parties with a proposal for a truce, but neither side has formally accepted it. U.S. Envoy Mossad Boulos said the army returned with preconditions he called impossible, while the paramilitary rapid support forces unilaterally declared a ceasefire on Monday. Despite the RSF announcement, the army reported repelling an attack on a base in the West Kordofan region, marking the latest front line. The US-backed plan aims to end the war that erupted in 2023, causing famine, ethnic killings, and mass displacement. Sudan's army has objected to the RSF's presence in civilian areas and the UAE's involvement in talks, while the RSF says its ceasefire is sincere. The United Nations has welcomed the RSF move but emphasized protection of civilians and unrestricted aid access as the true test of commitment. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Ayanuga Olugbenga-Paul. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, thank you. Now, looking at this, how credible is the ceasefire that's been unilaterally announced by the RSF?
Well, I would want to be slow to applaud any party because I do not see too much credibility in the unilateral announcement and also the presentation of truce plan to both teams, which they have formally not accepted. from the US shows to you that there is more than meets the eye. I'm sure that the government's thinking is that, oh, we can still take back some of the lost territory, we can still do this, we can still do that. And for now, because those who control government are living in relative safety, they have thousands of guards and army officers to protect them. So they really do not know the plight or feel the plight of the masses that are caught in the middle of the trouble. And that is why will feel like, oh, if we put a little more pressure, maybe we can retake back the lost territories. But even if they do retake back the lost territories, at what cost will that be? At what cost to human lives and property? At what cost to the environment would it be? So I really do not trust. And of course, the Sudanese government have always been harping on the involvement of Qatar in the negotiation. Whilst I don't know what other alternative to suggest to them, but whatever Qatar is doing behind the scene that is making the government uncomfortable to sign deals that is emanating through Qatar's negotiation efforts should be looked into really, so that both parties can really trust the content of what they are signing, because nobody amongst the two wants to be caught up in a situation where they lose out the territories that they have gained. But as a commitment, like the US envoy has said, opening humanitarian corridors, allowing aids to come in, and protecting the civilians, non-combat civilians, should be a priority that will show that truly the RSF means what it says with the truce that he had unilaterally announced, and that might also give confidence to the government force that maybe for us not to look like the bad person in this negotiation, we've seen RSF shown commitment, and then let us also come to the table. But even when the two of them comes to the table, what about the other small guerrilla forces and teams that are also holding on to small blocks of the country where both RSF and the Sudanese government do not have control? How do they bring all of these people so that it will not look as if, oh, it is RSF that broke the truce, oh, it is government that broke the truce. Meanwhile, it is just some small vigilante groups that are operating in smaller chunks of the territories that are making it look like these are the people breaking the truce. Because if that is not looked into, whoever is sponsoring those ones may not want peace so that they can continue their operations. But on the long run, the earlier they all come to the sitting table, discuss, agree, and find solution to lasting peace, the better it will be for everyone involved.
Yes, and Mr. Paul, as you rightfully mentioned, that there's not just RSF and Army. There's so many more players in this, and but for now, we know the proposal for a truce. Neither side has formally accepted it. Do you think this should be extended to all the groups who are, like you said, there's so many small groups who are involved in this crisis now?
Well, I think they should look into how many of them can be incorporated in the deals so that you are finding one lasting solution for everybody, something that everybody can find their space within and be able to agree for a credible ceasefire. If that is not done, well, it is more fires that end up becoming wildfire at the end of the day if they are not nipped in the bud at the beginning. So there must be a way to incorporate them to look at what can be done to bring all of them to the negotiation table.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Ayanuga Olugbengapol for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. Now, moving on to Nigeria. In Nigeria, the presidency has announced that 24 schoolgirls who were kidnapped last week from their boarding school in Kebbi State have been freed. The girls were abducted on November 17th by armed assailants who attacked the school overnight, leaving a school official dead and a security guard injured. The attackers had initially taken 25 girls, but one managed to escape shortly after the kidnapping. President Bola Tinubu has welcomed the release and praised the efforts of security forces. He has also urged authorities to intensify their efforts to rescue the remaining students still held captive. The Kebbi attack has sparked other similar incidents, including the abduction of over 300 children from a school in Niger State and 38 worshippers from a church in the east. Nigeria continues to grapple with the growing threat of both jihadist groups and criminal gangs. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Ayanuga Olugbengapol. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much for staying with us, Mr. Paul. What more can you tell us about this ongoing situation, and how scrutinizing has this scandal been for the current government?
Well, this current situation has really put the current government in a very, very bad light, especially that the people at the helms of affairs in this current government, when they were in the opposition, they were also very critical of the government of former President Goodluck Jonathan, always having something to say, always having an advice to give, always asking the president to resign if he is incompetent to handle the security situation. Then now they have found themselves in office and the same situation persists. So people are asking if they cannot use their own recommended medicine by themselves, and that is putting them in a very terrible light. This rescue that was announced, the announcement is met with skepticism in a lot of quarters because people are asking questions. The 24 girls that were rescued, how were they rescued? Were they rescued by effort of the military? Were they rescued because some ransom payment exchanged hands? Were they rescued because the terrorists just wake up one morning and then they felt magnanimous and released these girls? If they were rescued because ransom payment exchanged hands, I think the masses from whose taxpayers' income the ransom money was paid deserve to know. If they were rescued because the terrorists became magnanimous, which is very highly unlikely, we need to know. And if they were rescued because military really gave them a hot chase, we need to know, because if military gave them a hot chase, there should be casualty on the side of the terrorists, and no report is arguing towards that. And those are the questions that a lot of Nigerians are asking. But personally, I feel that what the president has said is enough. Praising the military is enough, because at the same time, they are trying to use a carrot and stick approach with this terrorist group. So if they start bragging about how many terrorists they killed in the process of rescue of the girls, that may be counterproductive. And that is the reason why I feel the president was carefully in the wording of his announcement about the release of the girls. So, but we need to see more actions being taken. We need to have people being able to being allowed to protect themselves by legal means possible. If the law, many countries, I don't know whether you guys have it in India, but I know South Africa and many other countries have private security contractors who are licensed to be armed to the teeth by the government. These private security contractors are the ones guiding VIP. But until recently, when the president announced that police should stop guiding VIP. It is the police who are supposed to protect the masses that were busy guiding VIPs. Even now that the president has announced that they should stop, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps (NSCDC) that has been assigned that role now are part of the security forces that ought to be guiding the masses, that to be guiding the people. But now they have been assigned to guiding VIPs. There is no room for private security contractor or individuals to hold weapons to protect themselves, and so we are all left at a sitting duck. I don't know. May God not allow it that I'll be in my office and this attack will happen and we'll get kidnapped because we could not respond forcefully to the aggressors.
Right. Thank you for giving the reality check on the state of Nigeria and sharing that insight, Mr. Paul. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to Tunisia, Tunisia's President Kais Saied has summoned the European Union's ambassador on Wednesday to protest what he described as a failure to respect diplomatic rules. According to a brief statement, the statement did not provide further details on the alleged breach in protocol. Saied has also criticized the envoy over the use of practices outside of official frameworks recognized by diplomatic customs. The announcement follows recent diplomatic activity in Tunisia. Just days ago, EU Ambassador Giuseppe Peron has met with the leader of a major trade union in the North African country. No additional information was provided on whether further diplomatic measures would be taken or how the EU might respond to Saied's protests. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Anugauluk Paul. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for staying with us. Now, what are the potential implications for Tunisia-EU relations now that a head of state has publicly accused an ambassador of breaching diplomatic norms?
Well, I think that it is a good thing, first and foremost, that the head of state did not cower or hide in his shell and is talking about these all-important breaches, because many of the European countries and especially America, they feel superior to everybody else and they feel that they can do things and get away with it. And they've been getting away with quite a lot of things on the African continent because the leadership refused to speak, because the leadership are having a lot of other consideration, especially when many African leaders have their property and wealth stowed away in Europe and America. So they are always thinking twice before they speak. But I believe that the Tunisian president is learning from the incidents of the past, because don't forget that the Arab Spring of 2011, you can't take away the influence of external actors who made it possible. And Tunisia was one of the very first places to capitulate during the Arab Spring uprising. And so, having learned from that, if they are seeing a breach of protocol that, they didn't give full detail of the exact form or format in which the breach happened, but I want to think that they are seeing hands of Esau, voice of Jacob that are playing out behind the scene, and they are quickly shouting now because they don't want external operators to destabilize their country. One. Two, that when they allow a small disrespect to go unprotested, bigger disrespect will happen, which will undermine the country's national integrity. And so I believe it is a good one that the president is speaking of. But I also believe that many of the European Union, they are just, they come back. They can't really bite. They only prey on the fear. And that's why their most important weapon is fear-mongering in the minds of the people. So if people can say, we are standing up to you, I believe that they will adjust. I believe that they will make correction, and smoothing out relations, knowing fully well that many of the European countries depend on Africa to survive for their resources, for their income, for many things. They depend on Africa. And so, an African leader coming to speak up, if he can find his way to influence his neighbors to also stand with him in addressing this disrespect, Europe will have no choice than to listen and make adjustments. So I do not have any fear at all that maybe this will escalate into something that will not be in favor of Tunisia on the long run. I am happy that the president spoke up and stood up for what he believed is the right thing to be done.
Yes, and I remember me and you did discuss something similar when French media was accused of last week, and also you showed similar stance on that. It's very nice to hear this again. Now, how do you, informal or non-official diplomatic engagement, such as the meetings with civil society or trade unions, how do you think this is complicating traditional diplomatic protocols in this case?
Well, in fact, it is not just complicating. If they are not careful, it is something of national security concern. Because in every country, trade unions will always have one grouse with the government or the other. In every country, trade union wants more better service condition, better working condition, and several demands that the government will never meet at once, no matter how much the government tries. And so, if we are now having external players meeting with trade union without the consent of the government, without the approval from the government, and this is something they will not allow in their own
Right.
dangerous precedent if it is allowed to slide.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Paul for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. Now, moving on to Uganda, Ugandan opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi has accused the government of detaining over 300 of his supporters and party officials since the start of presidential campaign last month. Kyagulanyi, who is challenging President Yoweri Museveni for the second time, claims the arrests are part of an effort to instill fear and disrupt his campaign. Among those detained are ordinary supporters, campaign coordinators, and aides. In recent days, security forces have used tear gas, water cannons, and pepper spray to disperse crowds at Kyagulanyi's rallies in Kampala. The government has not yet commented on the allegations. Kyagulanyi, who came second in the 2021 election, says Museveni's administration has engaged in electoral fraud and intimidation accusations, which ruling party denies. If re-elected, Museveni, who has been in power since 1986, will extend his rule to nearly 50 years. Now we welcome back Mr. Ayanuga Olukbenga Paul. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for staying with us. Now looking at this, what are we to make? Thank you. Now looking at this, what are we to make of the situation in Uganda?
Well, Ugandans are tired. Saying tired is an understatement, and President Yoweri Museveni knows this. And I mean, he's a veteran in the game of manipulation and having his way. So, and like what is happening with Paul Biya in Cameroon, the success of the like of Paul Biya emboldens people like Yoweri Museveni to say it is.
We seem to have lost connection with our guest, Mr. Ayanuga Olukbenga Paul, for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we welcome another guest to our panel, Dr. Tolit Atiya. He's an African affairs expert, joins us live from Kampala, Uganda. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Now moving on, Ugandan opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi has accused the government of detaining over 300 of his supporters and party officials since the start of the presidential campaign last month. Kyagulanyi, who is challenging President Yoweri Museveni for the second time, claims the arrests are part of an effort to instill fear and disrupt his campaign. Among those detained are ordinary supporters, campaign coordinators, and aides. In recent days, security forces have used tear gas, water cannons, and pepper spray to disperse crowds at Kyagulanyi's rallies in Kampala. The government has not yet commented on these allegations. Kyagulanyi, who came second in the 2021 election, says Museveni's administration has engaged in electoral fraud and intimidation, accusations which the ruling party denies. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Tolit Atiya. He's an African affairs expert, joins us live from Kampala. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Dr. Tolit, and joining us on NewsX World on this panel. What are we to make of the current situation between the Ugandan government ruling party for almost 5 decades and the newly rising opposition figure? Mr. Dr. Tolit Atiya, thank you very much for joining us today. We seem to have lost him, and that's a wrap on Africa Brief. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
What we